It was very shady, super shady, right? One small room, super shady, very old building, super shady, and some interviews are happening. And then I got cleared. Then they told me I have to pay 5,000 rupees security deposit. I asked that candidate, explain me multi-threading. So first 10, 15 minutes, whatever that candidate said, everything was out of my brain. Everything was French and Greek. I was not able to read. The problem is sourcing is not completely Boolean. Sourcing is data analysis. Sourcing is pattern analysis. Who is teaching data analysis? Who is teaching pattern analysis? Who is teaching the data concepts? Because sourcing is data. I've been an outstanding student, not in terms of subject, but always standing outside the class.
Hi everyone, meet Ashfaq Ahmed, the engineer turned recruiting monk from clueless engineer to becoming one of the most India's innovative minds in the recruitment world. Ashfaq Ahmed's story is anything but ordinary. He stumbled into a recruitment by chance, used Jugaad to master in the early on days, turned downtime into opportunity, training colleagues, experimenting with different. In 20, he founded Recruiting Monk, a movement that has empowered over 10K recruiters with practical, data driven techniques. Today, Ashwak doesn't just train recruiters, he also trains machine, leveraging AI to solve modern recruiting challenges at scale. Get ready for fun, insightful ride, and to know about Ashwak's journey, his philosophy, how he has reshaped the future of tech recruitment. And with this, Ashwak, thank you so much for your time. We both were trying to connect and reach out to each other. Finally, we are here. So thank you once again. Thanks for your time. Just a quick basic introduction about you, what you have been doing these days.
Hey, hi, Prafulla. So, firstly, pleasure being here. Thanks for having me part of this podcast. And fabulous job. You're trying to do something for the community, right, which is pretty good. Right? Any contributions to the community to serve in some form and shape is a good initiative. It's something which needs to be supported, right, and acknowledged. Just to give you a quick background, I come with like around 12 years of experience in recruiting, out of which roughly around 1.5 years I was a hands-on recruiter. And after that, I've been training recruiters, building recruiting teams. And from there on, I went on to build Recruiting Monk, right? More like a learning community. And then now I'm building a AI solution, which is Tia Buddy, right? So that's been the gist of a journey.
How did you end up in the recruitment world? What inspired you to choose this path, being an engineer as well, right? And how your role has evolved over time?
Basically, I used to bunk my classes and used to go to other colleges where there is all of these events are happening, like paper presentation and stuff, right? So I've won like around roughly 20, 30 paper presentation events during my college days, right? So I had an innate calling towards anything which had to do with people management. And when I completed my engineering, I still had 12 backlogs. My overall history of backlogs was 50, 50. Utne paper heavy nahi, right? But yeah, so because I used to have back pay back. So then what happened when I completed engineering, I knew that if I did not even have had a thought of getting into the IT side of thing, but just a thought. Even if I go there, the watchman would say कि मेरा percentage ज़्यादा है तुम्हारे से. Right? So I would be chucked out. So I knew that. So I knew the reality. So then I was just, after my engineering, I was just wasting my time, whiling away, not doing much because I was still having backlogs. My friends with 80% were not getting a job. So I was thinking again, I see. And then what happened? I got a mail from a company saying it's a HR opportunity. I got excited because I knew people management is my thing. But then I wasn't sure as a fresher without MBA, can you get into it? But then I thought, let's see what's there in it. Right. So I walked up to this particular interview call, what I had a mail from Naukri. Then when I went to this place, it was very shady, super shady, right? One small room, super shady, very old building, super shady, and some interviews are happening. And then I got cleared. Then they told me I have to pay 5,000 rupees security deposit because they would provide me training shit and crap, right? And they will return it after 3 months. And my first month salary also, I'll get it in the second month. Or as a fresher, we all think about this golden document called as experience letter. So that's what I asked. Experience letter milega kya? Will you give experience letter? Right? They said, yeah. Then I thought, okay, engineering के लिए लाखों खर्चा हो गया, right? Spent lakhs on engineering. 5 experience letter मिल रहा है, वो भी HR में, because I wanted to get into people management, right? And I had no clue what HR is, right? The fresher, what do you know? Interview लेते हैं कुछ. That's all you know, right? And little fancy, looks fancy from the outside world.
Yes, yes.
So then I attended, I cleared the interview, right? And I paid that 5,000 and I joined. The day I joined, there was one more person along with me, जो कि बने थे, me and another guy. So we were put in one shady room, which had a pretty old, what do you say, these monitors. If I have to hit the monitor, then the screen will be visible, right? Every 30, 40 minutes, it will disappear, then I have to hit, and then the screen will be visible. So then in 3, 4 days, me and the other guy who became a bakra, both of us figured out, okay, things are not as it needs to be, it is shady. So then we were thinking, what do we do? So that's when this guy gets a call. Now I'll tell you, this company is my blessing in disguise to what I am today. So I'm thankful to this fake company. That's why it has a narrative, right? Where people say sadness and happiness is just a state of, like, it's a state of time. right? Because today, what is sad, you don't know that eventually is leading to something positive. You don't know. That's just a state of mind. It's subjective, right? So that moment, after 3 4 days, this guy gets a call from another company saying HR opening. He hangs up the call thinking even that is fake, because even that guy is an engineer. So we think, okay, MBA chahiye for HR job. Then see, I am someone who doesn't give up. I am like someone who wants to try it out, like the Jugaad guy. Right? I don't accept the norms and stuff. Right? So I told this guy, call that company and ask, are you fine with non-MBAs? And you are an engineering, number one. Number two, ask them, should we pay 5,000 rupees? So he called, asked MBA nahi hai, engineering. They said, chalega. 5,000 rupees dena chale. What's 5,000? Kuch nahi hai, interview ko aa jao. Then he said, okay, there's one more friend of mine, which is me. Can I get him along? They said, haan, leke aa jao. Then both of us went for this interview, and then we looked at the company. It looked like a pauper company, proper big setup. Then we thought, okay, this may not be fake. And by the way, I still have backlogs. So I am someone like, dekhte hain kya hota hai. So trying out something new, we should not always shy back, right? So then I went there. We both went for the interview. He got rejected. I got selected, right? That was my first company, which is Quest Corp, which was IKEA back then. When I joined, they obviously, I know they will ask me education documents, ka hai, degree ka hai, right? So I already had an answer. Since being a Jugaadu, I know that would come. De deta hu 2 week. And that 2 week never came. Right. And after a year or something, my manager got to know I had backlogs. Then he was asking, then yeah, eventually I cleared it after 2 years. So people ask me, did I do MBA after engineering since I train HR and stuff? I tell them, yes, I did, but my version of MBA is different. 4 saal engineering, 2 saal MBA, and the full form of my MBA is managing backlogs and arrears, MBA. So that would teach better management than most of the MBAs would.
I definitely like the way you have explained about your MBA along with the engineering, which is really nice. And I think India Jugaad is one of the things which India pura Jugaad mein chalta hai, to be very honest, somehow the other way, right? And thanks to you that you have openly talked about the backlogs and all, right? Without backlog or with backlog, also people can grow in their career, grow in their life, but you should know what your interest is, right? So definitely you can see him as an example how he have started his own venture, own company as well. And he's training lots and lots of recruiters and trying to help thousands of people along with these recruiters. Right?
See, it's not about, backlog or no backlog doesn't matter. What really matters, right? I fell in love with the job. And why did I fall in love with the job is because it gave me things what is innate to me as a person, as my characteristics, right? Like during my college days when I used to bunk and go to other colleges, I used to take part in a lot of events, right? Paper presentations, or even there were a lot of problem solving events and stuff. Right? So where it was real time problem solving. And I was not a nerd. I was part of a group which was nerds. I was that proper brat, the last bencher. Right? It is just that I got along with them, and then I started getting along with them.
Participating.
So now what helped me in my recruiting days is one, problem solving ability, right? And two, being on the face, right? If something is not right, I will be on the face. I will not mind whether it's a hiring manager or a CEO or a CTO, right? I will not shy away. And I know what will happen. I will learn if I am wrong. If not, that guy has to tell why he is right. And then two, then came my journey into training, which had to do with my paper presentation and stuff. I did in my colleges, where most of the paper presentations, out of all the paper presentations I've won at least the first three, because I had the ability to do present and look at the eye contact, all that I carried in my college days, so I did not have the fear. So all of this actually gelled so well into my recruiting career that it made me grow. So if you want to grow in your career, backlogs, no backlogs doesn't matter. What matters is who are you as a person? What do you like? You might have a amazing calling towards art. You might like drawing. That could be your calling. Your calling could be something else. So what is your calling? If you can answer that, because that is something which we don't get to answer.
Yeah.
If you answer that and you align that to your career, trust me, you will see crazy growth because you'll fall in love with your career.
I recently visited to a couple of campuses as well, and students were asking similar question to me, which is your right thing, right? Your true calling is great, awesome. Moving to our next question. So you have worked across different sectors as well as different roles as well, right? What have been some of the most challenging moment as a recruiter you have faced, and how did you overcome them?
See, I was more like a recruiter for about 1.5 years in my journey, right? And then I've been helping teams in solving their recruiting challenges. So different recruiting challenges have different ways of approaching it. Personally, if you ask me as a recruiter, I have not done it for a long time. So it's been like almost more than 10 years since I did recruiting. And I could relate to challenges what my trainees and during my consulting assignments, what people brought in, right? So those could be the challenges and a challenge what I was addressing. And when I was addressing that, okay, I do have one story to share from my recruiting days, which I bring in during my training example, right? So what happened was I was working for Goldman Sachs every weekend drive. This is like almost 8 9 years back. Goldman Sachs used to hire every weekend. There used to be drive, at least 2 3 drives every month. Right? So that time, all these banking companies had this Java plus multi-threading hiring. A lot of, I think, telecom companies also have this. So now I saw my team leads and managers, right? What they used to do, they'll call every Java guy or core Java guy and ask, do you know multi-threading? Because multi-threading as a word is not available in the resume. Right? Now I'm like, okay, you're calling every guy and checking, do you know multi-threading? I'm like, this is so shitty. I can't do this. And what is multi-threading? If someone was saying library, someone was saying framework, right? Someone was saying something. I'm like, तुमको खुद नहीं पता क्या है, right? And तुम कुछ तुक्का मारो, right? हवा में मार. So then I thought, okay, my काम, right? And I'm a rebel, right? I don't listen to a manager बोल दिया सुनो नहीं यार, I have to find out manager मतलब बुद्धू है तो मैं भी बुद्धू बनना जरूरी नहीं, right? If manager is dumb, I need not be dumb myself. I'll have to find my ways out. So what I did, there was one candidate who was offered from my end. So what I did, I met that candidate for a coffee. I asked that candidate, explain me multi-threading. So first 10-15 minutes, whatever that candidate said, everything was out of my brain. Everything was French and Greek. I was not able to relate to anything. I told this person, hey, come on, don't tell me any of these technicalities. I don't understand anything. Just tell me who uses multi-threading, when it is used, what kind of projects it is used, in which context it is used. Then that person opened up and I gathered almost 15 keywords. I got back, I did searches with those 15 keywords. And I still remember I submitted 12 profiles, out of which 9 non-duplicates, which is crazy to get for a company like Goldman Sachs, out of which 6 attended, 3 offers. So that is one which I bring it even during my training, because this has to do with how do you see, there's one thing which people talk about. I'll come to the other side of the story is how recruiting as an industry is messed up. We don't have a framework. We don't have a structure. We go behind tools and techniques, right? We go gaga about techniques and tools, which is again a black box by itself. Right? We never had a framework to hiring. That's a unfortunate problem. Yeah, that's a problem which I solved during my hiring days.
When did you felt that your true calling is about training, about helping recruiters, about building your, and when did you realize कि आपको recruiting monk start?
My true calling is not training, by the way. Okay.
So what is your true calling then?
I love problem solving using technology.
Okay.
So training helped me validate a lot of things, because when I got into the journey, when I was like, I still remember when I was 3 years in the industry, that's when I bounced on machine learning NLP for the first time. Right? And when I bounced on it for the first time, I started coding in Python and NLP and LTK, trying to build a resume parser, ranking model and stuff myself. Okay. And I did this for 3 months, right? I practiced this for 3 months and then I gave up on coding, because not because I hated coding, right? I love the logic, but I hate the setup, right? I don't know if you've done coding anytime, the coders hate setups, right? This file is missing, because of it, your code is not running. Your environment setup, your cloud setup, your infrastructure setup, that's the most messy part. And now I think a lot of automation has come and things have gotten better. But during those days, like I'm talking about almost 8-9 years back, it was messy. So I gave up on coding. But those concepts, what I learned, right? Because I reviewed manually some 4,000-5,000 resumes myself while doing that. So doing a lot of pattern analysis of how people write, why do they write? How many recruiters can tell when they're doing a search, I'm using this designation because 60% people write, 20% people write. That data analysis, the concept is not there in the industry. So that is what I learned while doing this. And that's how my entire framework to recruiting evolved, which is big data concepts. That framework is what I started training recruiters. Right? And the more recruiters I started training, I realized sourcing as an industry, recruiting as an industry does not have any framework even globally. I've spoken to the best of the recruiting leaders. I've spoken to Irina. I've spoken to Mike Santro. Right? I spoke to Johnny when he visited. So the core discussion is, okay, if I have to ask you, what is the core sourcing problem? What will you tell?
So again, like there are lots of different challenges.
Core challenge. When I say core, it has to be in reference to time, and it has to reference to in terms of efficacy. What is core?
So core challenges again, like there we just run behind the tools only, right? For me as a recruiter, I should understand the concepts as well, right? Which not all the recruiters whom I have worked with understand, to be very honest. Right?
Because the industry never gave them a framework. Who's the best sourcer? Someone who knows Boolean. Who's the next best sourcer? Someone who knows internet sourcing. Who's the next best sourcer who knows some plugins and tools? That's the wrong definition of recruiting, right? So what is the core sourcing problem is? Sourcing is not completely Boolean. Sourcing is data analysis. Sourcing is pattern analysis. Who is teaching data analysis? Who is teaching pattern analysis? Who is teaching the data concepts? Because sourcing is data. You sit in front of LinkedIn, you have 500,000 backend developers. If you do not know the data concepts, what big data folks, data analysts follow, then you are blindly keying in some query and you are not aware of the data, what you miss. So the fundamental recruiting problem is we go behind the data, what we get the minute we query. We are not sure about the data which we miss. That's a foundational sourcing problem, because of which we keep beating around the bush, right? First search डाल दिया, उसके बाद second, third, fourth, beating around the bush. You see the same candidates. That's where we lose time. That's where we lose efficacy. And as an industry, we don't even know this problem exists. That's the foundational problem. Right? So that's how that big data concept came in and started training recruiters on those things.
I think recruitment में भी वही है ना कि सब लोग खाली टारगेट के पीछे भागते रहते हैं. किसी को वो रुक के सोचने का किसी के पास टाइम ही नहीं है. No one generally try to stop and understand why. And when we are talking about why, none of the recruiter, I know there are some very good recruiters as well who try to understand, who try to ask question as well. But कितना सारे recruiters है कि question भी as a student and other things पढ़ाई important है. But as a audience, we try to understand from everyone's perspective what you think and all.
Oh, yeah, I've been an outstanding student, not in terms of subject, but always standing outside the class because of doing something which shouldn't have been done. So yeah, that's been the journey, right? And then college also I did it in Chennai, right? And then I started my job in Chennai, right? And then from there on, I moved to Hyderabad, worked there for a year. After that, I moved to Bangalore.
Engineering क्यों किया? Like why did you? Was it your decision or like
Family, 3 idiots.
क्योंकि most of the parents तो either engineering या doctor ही चाहते.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I do not know. During my 11th and 12th standard, I studied really well. So during 11th standard, I met a maths tuition sir who was a gold medalist from IIT. And that guy was, the way he used to teach was like crazy. That made me fall in love with mathematics and physics. Right? And I think I'm thankful for him, because of which I got that analytical reasoning and ability, right, during that period. Those are the 2 years only I studied in my entire life. And even in engineering, I never had backlogs in mathematics. I never had backlogs in things where like anything, equations and derivations and stuff, signals and systems, the papers like these in electronics, right? I did not. I used to have backlogs in papers like, I don't know, if you've done engineering, you would know that there's a first sem paper which used to have engineering graphics or drawing.
Yeah, drawing वाला हाँ हाँ.
So I cleared that paper in the 8th sem, first sem paper. So those are the kind of papers I used to have backlogs.
वो बहुत boring भी था यार engineering graphics, to be very honest.
Yeah. So I hated it. So yeah, so maths is what I fell in love with. So yeah, those 2 years is what I studied, and never studied other than that.
Training, you have mentioned that you have started training lots of recruiters very in the initial career of yours as well, right? So वो कैसे start हुआ? Then like आपका recruiting monk कहाँ से start हुआ? If you can quickly.
Again, TVF pictures में कहावत है ना, वो बोलता है ना, भाई तो बियर जैसे बेहतर. So I keep flowing, and that's what happened with me. The way I got into the job, I told you the story, right? And same way how I got into training has a story, right? So when I was 1 year in the industry, I was asked to quit. Okay. So there's an article on LinkedIn I've written on this, right? So what happened was, I was a notorious student. So I was a notorious when I came into my first job also. So I used to finish my job in 4-5 hours. Okay. And I had this habit of talking, going to each desk and talking, pulling them out for a chai, right? So my manager kept on warning me, don't do this. I did not pay heed. I kept on doing it. Right? And one fine day when I completed 1 year, he said, so then I was like, oh shit, this is serious. And I was getting paid peanuts, by the way. I was getting paid 8,000-9,000 salary, but I was enjoying the work, what I was doing, because if I'd fallen in love with the entire people management and HR recruiting. So then I went back to my high manager with a proposal. उसने fire कर दिया, बोला कि निकल जा. But my proposal says, I don't want to give up. I'm like, मरने में क्या जाता है? उसका है. Try मारना अपने. I knew कि he did not have a problem with my productivity, my delivery. The problem was something else. So I went to my manager and said, so you don't have a problem with my productivity, and I also love the job and stuff. Can we do one thing? Don't ask me to submit more resumes because I'm finishing early. I will not do that. Give me some other task so that I do not waste that remaining 3-4 hours. That tickled his mind. मिला है अभी. That was his context, right? Okay, someone who can do double, right? Something else amazing. And for me, the context was, okay, I'm going to broaden my horizons. So my manager said, okay, give me a couple of days time. He got back, right? And then my manager said, okay, I'm going to give you a task for 3 months. If you do this successfully, I will make this a separate business division for you. And I was hardly a year. Right? I asked, what is it? He said, hire 5 interns free of cost, unpaid, 3 months internship. You train them and get delivery out of them. Okay. And after that, you tell me who needs to be hired, I'll hire them, right? So do this for about 3 months. If you do this successfully, I'll give you a 50-member floor in Hyderabad for you, where you have to build a 50-member delivery center in Hyderabad. I'm like, awesome. And I'm just hardly 1.2 years in the industry. That's how I got into training. I did that. That project was successful. Then I moved to Hyderabad for a year, where I developed a delivery center for 50 people. And then that's where I met my ex-partner, Raghunandan Patre, who was back then head of RPO of CareerNet, HirePro. So he had come to train Magna, which is a sister company of IKEA, and we both were staying in the same guest house. And that's when he said, hey, let's collaborate and do it, because you are also a recruitment trainer and you seem to have some crazy concepts. Let's collaborate and do it. So when I reached 3 years in the industry, I told my manager, hey, I have to leave. He is like, no, you cannot leave. I said, I have to do my startup. He said, no, you have to build another delivery center in Trichy. I want you. Then I said, what to do? He said, he gave me a proposal. He said, weekly 2-3 days you work for us, remaining 2-3 days you do whatever you want. I said, oh, nice deal. I said, this time I will get back to you. Finally, you have to get back. This time I will get back. Again, I've written this on LinkedIn as well. Then I got back after 2 days and said, deal aisa hai. I will work for 2 weeks in a month for you and 2 weeks for me. Okay. And remaining 2 weeks, I'll manage mail and all, whatever comes in, I'll manage. He said, okay. So I did moonlighting when there was no term called as moonlighting, right? So I was helping him build that Trichy center where he used to travel to Trichy and build him that center. And I don't know, some of them might say, oh, what I did was right and wrong, debatable. But yeah, along with Raghunandan, I used to train other companies like CareerNet and stuff, right? So I did that for a year, right? Some might say, oh, what you did was not right. I asked my manager to leave. He was not leaving. What can I do? Right? So then I did that for a year, and then I finally said bye to IKEA right after a year. So 3 years, even the fourth year, it was like I was working full time. My payroll was running. It is just that I had a deal with my manager that I was doing 2 weeks for them. And the 2 weeks remaining, that's when I was exposed to the outside world. Till then, I was just working in IKEA, right? And that's how I was exposed to the outside world of recruiters and started training.
So till that time, how many approximate recruiters or fresher you have trained?
In IKEA, it would be easily 150 to 100.
Like, did you saw some kind of patterns when you started training to the students?
When I was with IKEA itself, I still remember the first batch of interns, what I did. In that, there was a guy who was an engineer. I got along with him. I started building Excel solutions.
Okay.
I was never fascinated about trading. I was always fascinated about building solutions. So the solutions and then training just got married together. Now, eventually, over a period of time, my training helped me validate my frameworks and approaches because I've trained so many recruiters. And I've not just trained in the last few years. I hardly train freshers. I have an e-learning platform which takes care of it. Now, people who come to my training are minimum 2-3 years experience, up to 30 years of experience, right? I have head of sourcing, I have VP, right? That's the kind of people who come and attend the training program, right? So that helped me validate my framework, and now it's being plugged into the technology.
Why recruiting monk? नाम कैसे आया कि recruiting monk? क्योंकि it looks very fancy as well, to be very honest. पहले तो किसी ने उस
I launched it in 2019 end में I was working on this project. 2020 is when I launched, a week before COVID.
कैसे decide किया और final किया recruiting monk?
Okay, so what happened was, how it eventually happened was, see, I was looking at tools and platforms. Quora was my inspiration, right? And then Stack Overflow, and I'm like, WordPress का paid version कुछ तो लिया था जिसमें had the complexity to deal with Q&As and stuff, right? And made this, and the name, how it happened, okay, I'm blessed with naming conventions in general. It's all the names I have derived with, be it Recruiting Monk, even TA ka buddy. So that name also goes along well. So yes, all these naming conventions, because I'm good with these naming conventions and coming up with things like these. Anything has to do with rhyming or naming, fairly decent, I would say, if not great. So that's what helped. Now I think with ChatGPT, it's a lot more easier.
So now can you talk a little bit about recruiting monk? What exactly you try to do in recruiting monk, plus the training programs which you have been running, right? Because there are like, for example, in India itself, we have huge number of recruiters across India, right? But are they capable enough to source in a right way, which you were talking? So if not, is there a way for them to reach out to you for different kind of knowledge or training programs? And if so, how?
See, the real truth is in next 2 years, sourcing will be automated. If you like it or you don't like it, sourcing will get automated. What could remain in sourcing is, right, I call it dark matter sourcing. Could remain, right? There's a reason why I say could. What is dark matter sourcing for that matter? When you're sourcing on a platform like LinkedIn, right, your search says Java and Spring Boot and microservice and so that captures only those people who have written all of it. Now, how about people who have not written one term, 2 terms, not written anything? Are they not suitable?
They might be, but we don't know.
Why? Because they've not written it. 60% of data on LinkedIn is a dark matter because people don't write it.
Yeah.
So now dark matter sourcing is what would evolve, because for an AI to do well, there needs to be data. If there's no much data, how do you infer and come along? So there can be two ways in terms of how sourcing could work. One is the input itself, right? When you're giving an input, smart enough to tell the AI what you need, or the AI what you are working on is smart enough to come up with suggestions. That's what I'm building, right? It can tell you, okay, there is dark matter like this. It will also tell you, I rate this dark matter like this. There's no other AI which does that. Because to do that, there needs to be a framework to sourcing. So since I've introduced that framework, I've plugged it here. So yeah, for sources and recruiters, see, if there's something, what you need to master is you need to go back to your foundations and fundamentals. And when I say foundations and fundamentals, there are a lot of nuances which you need to work on, right? By default, a good majority of recruiters are not great communicators, right? Can you improve on your communication skills? Number two, today there's a lot of talk about prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering. I run a 3 months program for prompt engineering, but it's not prompt engineering per se. It's a Gen AI program where I talk about prompt engineering only 20%. So I talk about the core skill which is required, because of which lot of the humans cannot be great at prompting. Right? A lot of humans cannot be great at using AI. Why? Because as a mankind, as humanity, as a race, there's one skill which we are not great at, and that skill is asking questions. Professor बोलता है क्या ज़्यादा सवाल कर रहे हो? You're a good student if you answer. Don't ask questions. So asking questions as a humanity, as a mankind, as a race has been the most biggest sin. And today that is the skill which you need to have if you have to master using AI. And trust me, we as humans do not have that. Because I'm running my third batch of Gen AI where I have leaders. And this program is only for leaders, people with manager and above experience. So I'm not teaching, I'm a prompt engineering का content available है. YouTube में available है, हर जगह available है. I want you to teach fundamental nuances and frameworks. How do you ask questions? We do not know as a mankind, as humanity, as a race, because हमको दबाया गया है. सवाल मत पूछो. Don't ask questions, right? So we will not be good at doing AI just because of this one thing. Right? So yeah, in terms of the courses, what I'm running, these are the two courses what I'm running, right? And eventually, once my TA buddy goes live, most of my courses will be available for free. Right? So once my TA buddy goes out, right, it creates the enough. We picked up models, DeepSeek, GPT, and bunch of other models, and each of the models has their own pros and cons, right? So we did something called as model level orchestration, right? And then we refined and fine tuned this model for recruiting context. So what we are building is something called as LRCM, Language Reasoning Context Model. I have to explain you what it is. LLM is what GPT and DeepSeek. What is LRM? Your cursor AI, which helps you in coding, which is language reasoning model. It would reason like a coder. Ours is language reasoning context model. What it means, if you switch to sourcing, which is a context, it will reason like a top sourcer and give you the best output. If you come to resume ranking, it will reason like resume ranking and it will give you the best ranking approach and methodology, right? So that's why it is called as a LRCM, language reasoning context. It's a model, right? And it is going to be just like ChatGPT, okay, in terms of the usage, right? But the difference here is no prompting required. That's the difference. Chat needs to be done because the model is trained for a recruiting context. So now people can use this as a chat GPT kind of a thing. Or you can plug and play an API into your Google Sheet, into your ATS, wherever you want to plug and play, you will plug and play an API. Right? Or you want to do resume ranking. I think this is the most flexible and easy tool you will ever come across to use it. So what you need to do is, this is a ChatGPT kind of an interface application. You just need to say authenticate my Outlook or Gmail, and in the settings tell which mails should we read for security purpose. Read mails only which are ending a domain naukri.com, some ats.com, or maybe give a subject line. If this has subject line like this, read that mail. So once you define that, we read those mails and then we read those resumes and then keep categorizing for you. You don't need to even open. So that's the next phases which we have, right? And eventually in going forward phases, I think in next 2 months, we will automate the entire sourcing. So we will, because we've created the searches. If search ban gaya, to validation bhi ho. So once people start using it, we have a methodology where the machine learns, right, and gets better, and I get to view the entire model from a backend. Okay, what's going right, wrong, I do the tweaks and changes. This time the machine's efficacy increases, and then we plug live sourcing to it so that the machine can do search, right, and has all my sourcing concepts, what I have trained people, addressing the dark matter, the gray data, all of it. And the biggest difference between this and other tools will be, other AI tools don't tell you why did they bring the entire lot of a data when you do a search. It will tell you why this guy is good, but it will not tell you why this lot came, because there's more reasoning to it. No one tells. And we are not bothered to ask, because we don't look at the data what we miss. We look at the data what we get. That line of thought is the biggest difference of what I get versus what I miss, right? So those reasonings are incorporated so that there's much more visibility and you get a larger chunk of data, right? Okay, I'll just give you a quick glimpse of this. Is still in our testing. So this is what it would look like, right? Proper GPT kind of an interface, right? Come here, you just copy paste the JD. Along with that, you can attach the resumes. So here you attach the JD, right? Here you attach the resumes, right? And then you give a couple of minutes, it will go read what are the company history, review notes, right? All of it will give you along with the score, right? And we are making a more advanced version for a paid version where we'll give a very detailed, what is this candidate's company, how many people work, what is the funding stage, which domain the company is, all of that. And each company, what is the KRA, KPI, pretty detailed. That will come in the paid view. In the free view, it will be more of a snippet kind of a thing, right? Where you get to know how candidates are stack ranked. We also have we'll be bringing you searches like this, right? We'll bring you searches where you give a JD, it will first decode the JD, right? Bring down the skills, right? And then it will create a search, right? So this is what it would be doing, where you don't need to prompt, just give a JD. right? Nothing else. So this is what we're building on, right? And this would have eventually the efficacy will get better over a period of time. But yeah, this is what we're building on. So what is your thoughts?
I think it's good, definitely. But only one question for, since we are having a community of recruiters, now recruiters will think कि अगर AI सब कुछ करके दे रहा है तो हम क्या करेंगे, है ना? So definitely as a human thought process that will be there. But in general, like as what I see, right, it will help recruiters for sure. Because आपके पास इतना सारा डेटा, आप JD अपलोड कर दो, रिज्यूमे अपलोड कर दो, आपका टाइम कितना सेव हो रहा है with lots of analysis which AI is doing for you, right? जैसे आपने वो पैरामीटर्स अलग अलग रैंकिंग स्टैक रैंक किया है on different parameters. So you can analyze those data. But again, for people to understand that, it might take time. क्योंकि अभी भी सब उस थॉट प्रोसेस में ही है कि मुझे सोर्सिंग में कौन सा बुलियन सर्च करूँ, ये करूँ, वो करूँ, उसमें ही है.
हाँ, वो भी दे रहे हैं. तो सीनियर ये सब कुछ दे. It is there for Boolean. You want to do it by yourself, do it. Who's stopping? Right? Do
Yeah,
you want to automate the screening part? Bulk mail डाल दिया नौकरी में, and you want to talk to the top 10 people, 100 responses. You plug your mailing. We will stack rank for you at the end of the day. Whether it is GPT, anything, they have a certain efficacy. So what happens with that efficacy? If any machine hits even 80% efficacy, that is great. That's how it is considered. Because it can, with 80%, imagine the master it. That is the skill which recruiters have to adopt. A good majority.
Agree.
I'm not talking about the ones who are doing well. I'm talking about the majority. What skill do you carry? If you are someone who reads the JD, okay, Java, Kama, Spring, Kama, this is available, I'll talk and ask rate out of 10. How many years? Then you don't have a skill. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. So you have to look at what is that you need to improve. And even the top 5% jo hai, you have to look at how do you come up with better problem solving abilities, which even top 5% really do not have. How do you come up with better problem solving abilities? If you have not built frameworks, if you have not built playbooks, if you have not analyzed frameworks and playbooks ka implication kya hua hai, how it improved the efficacy, then you are, I would not claim you're like top among the top. This is for top 5%. So how do you make sure you move up the ladder? Have you built frameworks and playbooks? Have you evaluated frameworks and playbooks? If not, you're still not there.
Recently, last 2-3 weeks back, we invited a couple of co-founders. One is Hari and one is Archit, right, to take their opinion on AI and recruiters and all those things. So हर टाइम रिक्रूटर्स बोलते हैं कि टच को तो रिप्लेस नहीं कर पाते, पर कौन सा ह्यूमन टच? आज विक्टर ने भी कुछ आर्टिकल लिखा ही होगा, तो आप एक्सपीरियंस ही नहीं दे रहे हो, घोस्टिंग कर रहे हो, तो कौन सा ह्यूमन टच रह गया वहां पे? एंड यू आर टेलिंग दैट एआई कैन रिप्लेस यू बिकॉज ऑफ ह्यूमन टच.
There's no human touch. You are more robotic than.
Yeah, but jokes apart, right? Coming back to recruiting monk and TA buddy, right? So let's say you have done lots and lots of training for these TA folks, right? So what kind of trend you have seen, right? After taking those training programs from you, how these recruiters have evolved or TA leaders have evolved? Like, did you also go some kind of analysis for yourself?
See, again, I keep publishing this on my LinkedIn post itself, right? What the leaders are saying, right? People who are taking up my program are saying, right? I follow a model which is followed in SaaS, right? There's something always built in public in the SaaS world. I follow train in public. So meaning whatever kind of content I cover, I post it. Whoever is part of my training, my snippets of what I teach is on my LinkedIn. Whoever attends my training, their feedback is there on my LinkedIn. Why? I'm telling the community, go and talk to them. Ask them how did they get benefited. So it's right on the face. Because I'm saying strongly, I'm giving value. Go check with them. So number one, the value is, if you look at all the feedbacks and stuff, which is right there on my LinkedIn and also on the website, they'll say it has been perspective changing. They don't say, I learned one hack and a tool. I don't teach tool in a 3 months course. I don't know, almost that's approximately 45 to 50 hours. I don't talk about any tool. Can you tell me one recruiting program today globally which teaches for 3 months and does not talk about one tool, and that too teaches people with 2 years to 30 years experience? Tell me one recruiting program. No, because we don't talk about fundamentals. I tell them your fundamentals are broken from day one, even if the person who is sitting is like a director or VP, because I'm saying learning has nothing to do with your age and experience. Right? So what we bring value is perspective change. Number two, we bring frameworks. There's no framework into hiring. Right? You talk whether React is better or Vue.js is better or Angular is better. Why? Because you have benchmarks and frameworks. In terms of JavaScript framework, what framework do you have for sourcing to benchmark against? You don't have it. So I give frameworks for sourcing. I give frameworks for talent intel. How is talent intel done today? What is ballpark? Is that the talent intel? No, unfortunately, our industry is running on a ballpark talent intel. And that's why we blindly follow or buy whatever any tool does. LinkedIn Insights, I throw in something, whatever LinkedIn gives, that is source of truth. Why? Because we don't know to validate. We feel okay, this is better than ballpark. Framework? No framework. So these are the things fundamentally I cover, right? Giving people the foundational element. I don't teach rocket science. I teach foundational aspects, which has never been there in recruiting, right? So that is what gets covered and that is what people acknowledge about.
So before I ask the last question, I thought let's quickly have a rapid fire question to make people a little bit light mood. Otherwise, some people might get scared as well. So for the people to make him light, comfortable. So there are three rapid fire questions I wanted to ask you as well. So one word your colleague would use to describe you. One word a colleague whom you have given training or you have worked previously would describe you.
One word, what a colleague would describe me.
Yes.
Energetic or maybe nerdy.
Okay. So if you were not in recruitment, what would be one thing you would be doing today?
Probably I would prefer to be in psychology.
Sorry? Psychology. Last question. Your go-to song when you need some kind of power in a long day.
I don't listen to songs.
So what you do if you have a bad day?
I don't take any negativity in life. Probably that's my superpower, right? If something negative happens in my life, I just tell them that was part of the thing. Next day it will get. You know, when I don't get sleep, if something tomorrow, something big is happening, then I don't get sleep thinking about it. Something bad has happened, right? A day before or the baad ka baad. So I don't have much of a downers and stuff. Like, touch wood till now. And even if, see, I told you, right? Everything is subjective. I told you that example of 5,000 rupees me paying there. So all those I've learned lessons in life ki happiness and sadness is very subjective. So why do you think about it, right? I just move on to what next, right? So only thing which bothers me is when I'm having something crazy the next day or some super positive thing happening, then probably I don't feel sleepy or maybe that is running on my mind, right? Or if negative, no, right?
So one piece of advice you would like to give any TA person available across the globe.
Learn to ask right questions. Sounds very simple, very tough to crack. That's it.
So before we wind up, we as a community is very young. We are just 1 year old community. We also try to do lots of different things, but again, like time doesn't permit. We have budget, we don't have budget. So we are just limiting with whatever possible things we can do, right? So currently we are focusing on podcast and we are also trying to do whenever possible some kind of panel discussion and other things. So in your opinion, how we as a community are doing, and is there anything we can do or improve to completely upscale the recruitment industry or help the recruitment industry?
First, never aim for quantity, first aim for quality. I've gone behind quantity. My recruiting monk scaled to 3,000 people in 1 year. And I had people like Dean DeCosta, Irina joining without inviting them because the quality of the content and it was ranking on Google and stuff. Right? But then 3,000 was huge. I didn't know how to manage it. I left it. Now I'm managing small chunks. So quantity over quality in the sense you first see what others are doing and where is your area of expertise where you could add value. Right? Even if there is not your area of expertise, let's say there are 10 people doing certain things. Now, some people will have a core area of expertise in those areas. First, ask, do you want to compete there? If you don't want to compete, then what are the other areas where people are not focusing? Pick that and try experimenting by doing A/B testing. For example, the podcast itself, if I was to do a podcast, I will pick shorter versions of podcast. I will pick topics and leaders which could entice and add value, and then I will test it rather than me going for a quick scale, right? Rather than me doing for like 100 people, 500 people, or even 50 people for that. I'll just do it with 5 or 10 max to validate if I'm hitting the right line of thought for my audience. In that 5, 10, that should give me a validation, right? So that is how I would approach, right? Because ideas will keep coming, right? So how are you quickly validating that idea? In maybe a month's time, 1.5 months' time. So there needs to be a span. And what is success for that idea? If I'm running a podcast, what is success? So if you don't have that measurement of success in terms of how you do A/B testing, then it could be challenging.
So thank you, Ashfaq. I think we are almost out of time. I really enjoyed our discussion. Good to know about your background, how you have studied, how you have paid 5,000 rupees to start your career as well. And I was not knowing that you were an engineering student. And today, when I was just preparing for the podcast, I got through your LinkedIn profile in detail and saw that you were also an engineer. So I also did my engineering, but I didn't have the interest in programming. So that is one of the reason I thought he let me explore. Same like you, I love doing events and organizing things and other things, which I am very much comfortable with. And I love doing that. So I thought that this is the good part. Good to know about you. And I personally believe the things which you have been doing are good enough. And I see that it really adds some value because there are lots of different things happening, right? But there are very few who are trying to do something very meaningful as well. Right. So I definitely see the meaningful things you have been doing. And yeah, it might take time for certain things. Since I have been running the podcast, I know it's not easy for everything. From outside, it looks very fancy, but all the best. And it was great knowing you. And thank you for sharing about TA Buddy and about Recruiting Monk as well. So for our audience, recruiting friends who want to attend a Recruiting Monk training sessions or TA Buddy related stuff, please feel free to contact us. He keeps updating, posting in LinkedIn. He has also shared a couple of stories and instances about his training program as well, how he do share content as well. Feel free to reach out to him. So with this, thanks as well. You want to share any?
It was a pleasure interacting, right? Looking forward how things evolve and also how I'm a recruiter community evolves, right? So yeah, looking forward to things, right? Yeah. Thanks, Prafula.
Thank you.